Do you have a moment, Sam?
Aristotle wrote, "Anybody can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, and to the right degree, and at the right time, and for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not within everybody's power, and that is not easy." What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Games You've Already Played. Today we're going to talk about The Last of Us Part 2. The saying jus ad bellum, or the right to war. In just war theory, you don't get to fight simply because you're angry or because somebody hurt you. There has to be a legitimate cause, proper authority. There has to be the right intention. It has to be a last resort. It needs to be proportional. And there has to be a reasonable chance of success. Even then, this still demands discrimination between combatants and non-combatants. A good cause never gives you a blank check. This would be a gentleman's sophisticated reasoning for war, but in The Last of Us Part 2, it discusses the messy details that obfuscate the end goals. The game discusses tribalism and the lengths people will go in order to reaffirm belief systems. Nobody's fighting for cosmic justice. They're fighting to protect people, avenge the dead, or keep the next group from wiping them out. So let's set this up. The original story deals with morality. Of all the bad things that Joel has done in his life, he finally reaches a limit and is unwilling to sacrifice even just one more thing in the justification of fill in the blank. That's been his whole life since the outbreak. A compromise for a compromise for a compromise. And besides, what would it gain him? The cure could be weaponized in the same way that a gun is. And what would you even do with a new world? The infected are gone, so are we just going to go back to the way that life was? Rebuild society like nothing happened? No. Not a chance. Not in this lifetime. And for this reason, Joel kills Marlene. But more importantly, for this story, Dr. Jerry Anderson, Abby's father. This is what sets up the premise for The Last of Us 2. Abby and company vow revenge against Joel's actions, and they do so in quite dramatic fashion, but again, it's messy. Tommy and Ellie watch Abby kill Joel. Logic would say that they would have to kill them too, so why does Abby let Tommy and Ellie live? Why leave witnesses or loose ends? Abby would be looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life. It doesn't make any sense. This is even discussed by the group at the time, but Abby's reasoning is the same as Joel's, and like Joel, it'll have dire consequences. I want to sidestep for a moment. There's this scene in Uncharted 2 at the end of the game where Drake and Lazarevich are arguing. Lazarevich raises a question about good and evil, pointing out how many people Drake has killed just to get to him. It's a jarring lesson about moral dualism, something I hadn't really considered before at the time. I mean, those were the bad guys. Their lives were forfeit the moment Drake decided his cause was just. But the truth is, any side of the conflict believes they're right, or they wouldn't be fighting to uphold it. To make the killing feel justified, both Ellie and Abby lean hard on this dichotomy. The wolves are monsters, the Seraphites are fanatics, Abby is a brute, Ellie is a psychopath. Institutions and individuals do this because pure emotional hatred is often the only way that ordinary people will pull the trigger. Yet the moment the story forces you to live inside the other person's head, that framing collapses. You see Abby's father as a caring man and a doctor, struggling with the very real notion of involuntary altruism. You see Ellie as a broken child who lost the only father she ever had. Despite the flaws, Joel was the only constant in her life, and most likely the only person that ever loved her or that she ever loved. It's because of these deep-seated emotions of love and connection that it's never really felt like a choice for either Abby or Ellie, and despite their differences, these two are so very much alike. And that's the internal paradox that every soldier eventually faces. To protect the people you love, you become capable of abhorrent deeds. You do things that, outside the logic of war, would be unforgivable. Ellie spends the first half of the game torturing and murdering her way through Seattle. Abby did much of the same on her way to Joel. Both of them are told by Jesse, by Mel, by Owen, that the cycle of revenge is pointless. They ignore it. Only later do they understand that the people they kill will never bring back the ones that they've lost. War, or the post-outbreak version of it, erodes every clean boundary. Friendly forces commit atrocities. Individual enemies act out of duty, loyalty, or honor. There are no pure good guys or bad guys. There's just different sides, each convinced that they are the ones doing what needs to be done. The same tribal logic shows up in politics every day. Everyone in their own camp, certain that they have the moral high ground, while anyone outside the ideology must be wrong. This lesson is further discussed during Abby's campaign and her interactions with the Seraphites. She has shown children within the faction that suggest humanity. It gives a heartbeat to what she had been told was a fanatic cultist organization, a fact that is slowly eroded by these two young children, and ultimately what changes her mind and helps her find that gray area that most people would settle in naturally in the absence of political or ideological agendas. Coming back to this game years later, after the initial outrage of Joel's death and Abby's character design had cooled, I actually see a great story here. It is dense with trauma, PTSD, love, loss, greed, and the slow realization that revenge never ends. Some of the heavier-handed social media messaging still makes my eyes roll, but the core argument is harder to dismiss. So in the end, we are faced with simple choices, complicated and distorted by the way the world works and the belief systems. The final fight scene between Ellie and Abby were confusing. I didn't want either side to succeed, but I also didn't want either side to lose. Again, we are shown the impossible decision that Joel faced. What does killing Abby solve? It won't change her memories of Joel. It won't build a better world or give her life meaning. What moral sacrifice is made by Abby killing Dina? Because Ellie killed Mel? How does this make her in any way better than Ellie? More revenge? What does it stop? We have to make a concerted effort, a choice to stop. If these two women want any chance at a better world, they need to stop murdering each other. It is written through every scene of the game. Tribal-based warfare that gains nothing but more warfare. Owen talks about this when he's telling Abby about defecting from the wolves. He recounts an elderly Seraphite, aged by war and tired, ready to die. It was a moment that Owen took to heart, a realization that none of what he was doing fixes the world. It's what Ellie realized in those final moments on the beach. But like reality, sometimes you cannot undo what has been done. Anyway, that's all I've got. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Cheers.